Hey there and welcome to the fourth tutorial of the series in which we're going to steal redux-thunk. Now, although much shorter than all the rest I've put out there so far, it still handles a pretty important use case, and that is dispatching asynchronous actions. Now, Redux by default is synchronous, right? When we dispatch an action, the store modifies right there and then. However, there might be cases where in order to avoid duplicate code, or maybe, that's a pretty good use case, we want to trigger some asynchronous actions. So maybe I want to trigger an action which says login user. I want then to fetch the user. If the user is correctly fetched, dispatch the action like we're used to so far, dispatch a synchronous action in the Redux store. If the user fails for some reason, maybe I don't have the credentials, maybe there's a server error or something like that, dispatch a different action based on that. And now if I have this kind of asynchronous flow, I can just dispatch the fetch user action from multiple points around the app without duplicating all the dispatching the success, dispatching the error, and so on. That will be handled in one place via redux-thunk. So yeah, let's implement asynchronous actions with redux-thunk, and I'm gonna go here into the docs in the README, and we can see here the best example. With redux-thunk, we can do something like this: store, dispatch, increment, async, which you see, instead of returning an action like we're used to. So here, if we look at this line, this is what we're used to so far. Returning an action which is an object. We're instead returning a function which later dispatches the action, right? So we can do that. Now I also implemented this part, thunk with extra argument. Maybe we want to always have an extra argument, and we pass it here when we register the middleware. And then in the function, so this function right here is the same one we were calling here. You see, we also receive as the last parameter the extra argument we specified. Now, since this is a middleware, it's important to look at middleware syntax. So let's go on the official Redux website, and I'm going to look at this logger middleware. And actually, let me just copy paste this one right here, right? I got the redux-thunk folder, and this is the logger middleware. And let me just go function thunk middleware. And this one, as we remember from last video, receives dispatch and get state as named params, and returns a function which will get next. This one will return a function which will get action, and this one will return something. Cool. Now this action can be either a real action or a function, as we've seen in case of redux-thunk, right? That action can be this function right here. So if it's a function, let's just go ahead and return action of, and the parameter order is, we can see in here, dispatch, get state, and then the extra argument. So let's just go dispatch first, get state first, and here we're gonna leave it null for now. If it's not a function, we can just return next. So we're dispatching the action. We're calling next. In Redux, we need to call dispatch with a real action, not with a function. So if it's a real action, if it's not a function, we're just gonna dispatch it. We're calling it next. Maybe it will go to the next middleware if we have another one. So we're gonna say next of action. Cool. Yeah, and to be honest, this is pretty much it. You see, we getting the middleware, dispatch, get state, the next function which interacts with the next middleware, the action. If the action is a function, call it. If it's not a function, already dispatch it. And the only thing left is this null, because the way we're adding this with extra argument is like this. So we're gonna be doing thunk middleware dot right with extra argument, and this one will be passed to create store. So this one needs to return the thunk middleware function. So let's just go ahead and say it like this: thunk middleware thunk middleware dot with extra argument, and this is, we have an argument, and we're gonna go ahead and say this dot extra argument is argument, and then we're gonna return this. How about that? And this one should be a function, right? This is a function, and so on. And actually, if I want to be 100% sure that this is not being called in a wrong way, that this isn't messed up somehow, I can go ahead and say function with extra argument. This extra argument is argument, return this. And I'm gonna go here and say thunk middleware dot with extra argument is dot bind thunk middleware. So I'm gonna bind it here just so I make sure, maybe, although I highly doubt it, but if it gets called with a different this, I want to bind it beforehand, and voila. So with extra argument dot bind, and so on, thunk middleware, and here we go. We put the extra argument on the function itself, then we return the function, and here we're just gonna go ahead and say this dot extra argument. And yeah, to be honest, this should pretty much be it. Yeah, redux-thunk is a very small package. Now, in order to test it, I copied the test code. So for each package stolen in this tutorial series, I made a separate folder in the repo, and each folder also has a test folder with the test project where well, you guessed it, I tested the implementation so that I don't tell you wrong stuff. So if you go ahead in the clone this repo, go in the test folder and copy everything from the test folder inside redux-thunk. I already did here. And now I just want to see that it will work with my implementation of redux-thunk. So let's just go ahead and look for redux-thunk. And we see we're importing here in store, and I want to import it from this place instead, right? From our own redux-thunk, just written by us, not the one which is already packaged, which is already published on package.json. And I'm gonna leave the original Redux. So we're gonna do, basically we're gonna do two tests. First, our custom redux-thunk and the original Redux. Second test, custom redux-thunk, custom React Redux, so that we make sure everything works. So let me just run this project, run test dev. Now it will pretty much start it, and go ahead here. It's gonna run it on localhost 8080, and oh yeah, because we haven't exported anything, of course. And we're gonna say here export default thunk middleware. And actually, so that it's even compatible with the backend, we should do module.exports is thunk middleware. Webpack understands both syntaxes, so this way it will work on Node.js. And this application is the sandwiches application. If you go on the official redux-thunk page, they have some code to test it. Basically, when you make a sandwich, there's a little bit of a delay there, and then either the sandwich succeeded or it didn't. So let's just go ahead and say for Bob, I want to make a sandwich. All right, it worked. For Alice, it worked. For Tim, all right. For Tim, it didn't work, and so on. So if we go and look that actually it uses redux-thunk, we can go ahead in our reducers. And this is again redux-thunk original code. I mean, code from the people behind redux-thunk for explanation. And you see we're dispatching make sandwich with secret sauce, I think. Let's just go, let's go in the original component, make sandwich, which is gonna call make sandwich function, which is gonna dispatch, yeah, make sandwich with secret sauce. If we look in the reducers one, make sandwich with secret sauce, you see it returns a function, then we gotta fetch the secret sauce, this takes some time, we're returning a promise, and so on. So yeah, we specifically added some delays here to see if it works, and our redux-thunk works. Now let's put also some logger. I want to put actually two middlewares, we can test that as well. So let's put logger first, then thunk. Let's do it again. So I'm gonna put here Bob. We'll dispatch this function state after dispatch. All right, and then it dispatched apologize before because yeah, we couldn't make the sandwich for Bob. Actually, let me just put this one, I think, after thunk. I think this should be better. Yeah, now we only get what's actually dispatched, not all the function and so on. So it dispatched just apologize. Let's try again. ls. Oh god, it can't make any more sandwiches. Come on, man. Let's refresh, try again. ls. Okay, you see it dispatched make sandwich for ls. So first test works, our redux-thunk with redux. Now let me just go ahead here and copy our implementation of redux. So I'm gonna go ahead and say .react redux, and wherever there's redux being used. So here I'm gonna go ahead and say React Redux. I'm gonna put basically I'm gonna copy the code from the previous tutorial in this one so that we see if it works. Sandwich shop, okay, React Redux. So we got this one going. Now I'm gonna go into my computer. Let's go into code, React Redux. This is the code from last time, from the last tutorial. Let's create here a new folder, React Redux.js, copy it. Let's just put a console log here, our own React Redux. So we know we're using this one, and let's go ahead, refresh the page. I think I still have the same provider issue. Jesus, yeah, the same one has got to be with uppercase P. Refresh it, and let's see if it works. Bob. Cannot read property then of undefined. Right. Well, it doesn't seem to be working, to be honest. Let's just try this one. Let's just try one. Well, it somehow gets there, but it doesn't return the promise. So we got a real bit of a pickle. Oh, and now I remember why. Because we're not returning it from from React Redux here in apply middleware. We should have returned this one. Yeah. If we're not returning this one, then yeah, because dispatch should return the action or the, in our case, the promise from redux-thunk, because we're returning a promise from the sandwich code. So now let me try it again and say Sam, and you see no errors in the console. This is here. Let's add the logger one after thunk and see if they both work as expected. So Sam, you see, will dispatch apologize. Yeah, we got here a warning because I'm iterating through a list, but I don't have the key property. That's okay. Let's go ahead. Bill, you see, will dispatch make sandwich for Bill, state after dispatch, etc. So yeah, this is pretty much the fourth library we've stolen. As you've seen, redux-thunk, not a lot of code, pretty simplistic. The hardest part was in the previous package in React Redux implementing the apply middleware. We've also seen we have a bug there. We should have returned from the apply middleware function, we should have returned the call to the middleware. So go ahead and change that in that tutorial. And yeah, 4 out of 5 done. As always, if you have any feedback, any you want to tell me anything regarding the tutorials, leave a comment down below, or find me on social media, write to me. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. And yeah, just one more to go. Styled components. See you there.